Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome back to Figuring Out the Bible. This is going to be episode 12, which is the beginning of Abraham's story. Um, well, the beginning of his solo story, I should say, because he is actually he's actually born and has some stuff happen at the end of chapter 11. Um, but Genesis chapter 12 is what we're talking about. That's when Abraham gets called to set out from Haran, where him and his father traveled to, and then also the uh, the situation that happened in Egypt with the Pharaoh. But we'll get to that. Um, as usual, my disclaimer: this is not at all educational. This is not authoritative, except for the words of Scripture themselves. Um, the thoughts, views, opinions, all that expressed in these videos are just purely mine. I'm not basing most of the time. They're not based off anything but what I personally pick up from the text. So, um, without further ado, let's get into the reading. Genesis chapter 12, the call of Abram. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." Jesus, perhaps? Where all people are blessed through the descendants of Abraham? Or Abram, as he's called at this particular so far. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Lot is his nephew. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people that he had acquired in Haran. That's like servants and stuff. And they set out to go to the land of Canaan. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to a place to the place at Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. I think that's how you pronounce that. It's just Ai. Ai? Something like that. And there he built an altar to the Lord and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on, still going toward the Negeb. Now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, "I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, but they will let you live. Say you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake." When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake he dealt with Abram. And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai. Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go." And Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. Whew, okay. So, first of all, this should be the bit with Pharaoh should be a lesson to all of us. Just tell the truth, even in the face of danger. It generally is going to pan out better. Now, let's get into breaking this down a little bit. So, we start out this bit with Abram's call to action. God tells him, "You are to set out. I'm going to make you a great nation." And keep in mind, Sarai, his wife, is barren, and she has been, and she will be for quite some time yet. We'll get into that. But God makes a couple very interesting statements in this call. He says, "I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing." Father Abraham is most definitely a blessing to the entire world. "I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse." Seen that happen. "And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So again, that's ultimately referring to Jesus, who opens up salvation to all the peoples of the earth, all the nations. So all families are blessed through Jesus, who is the, descendant of Abram, which eventually we'll get to when I get to the New Testament. But it starts off the book of Matthew with literally the first thing you see is the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. That's literally Matthew 1:1. So, yeah, I will bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you, or whatever. That is a direct reference to Jesus and how he will open up salvation to everyone. And here's something I find interesting. In many cases, when God calls people to do stuff, they will fight with it, or they will fight against God. They will argue. I'm thinking mostly Moses and his 3 excuses. I'm thinking of Jonah. I'm thinking of who is the other one? I had another one in my head, but it just. Anyways, but when it comes to Abraham, or Abram, as he's currently called, you never see that. He never fights with God. God tells him, leave your family, leave your home, leave everything you know. Just take you, your wife, and your people and your animals and set out. And just go. And he does it. It doesn't say he fought or nothing. He just does it. And then later on, the whole sacrificing Isaac thing, again, he did not fight with it. He was an obedient, good servant. And that's something that I really feel like we all kind of just gloss over, is how pure and innocent and faithful he was when it came to his love of God and his following God. Something people, I feel like that's an underrated trait of Abram that we really should talk about more. So yeah, he set out, and then Pat did the Shechem, and then the Lord appears to Abram again in Canaan, and this is when Canaan becomes the promised land, because he tells Abram, to your offspring I will give this land. that is the beginning of the promised land. That is when the land that is currently called Israel, between the Mediterranean and the Jordan River, the river to the sea bit that people keep chanting. Yeah, that space is biblically the promised land to the Jews. Though, technically speaking, seeing as how it's God doesn't specify your children, your offspring through Isaac, so it technically does also refer to those of, I don't want to say, or it applies to both the children of Ishmael and Isaac. So technically speaking, if, say, the Arab population were to take over Israel, technically speaking, that would still stand, and I mean they did. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Not what this is about. But if you look through history, since the conquest in the time of Joshua, that land, I'm just going to refer to it as the land of Canaan, because I don't want to get into any political crap. The biblical land of Canaan has always been under the control of children of Abraham for thousands of years. So it's kind of a mind-blowing thing to think about, isn't it? And it's a prophecy fulfilled. If you're, like, straight up, that is prophecy fulfilled. And that's going all the way back to Genesis 13. Genesis 13! Isn't that freaking crazy? Anyways, and Abram built an altar to the Lord, and because the Lord appeared to him there. He seems to build lots of altars, and it makes sense. When you're nomadic, altars like they made back then weren't exactly portable, so makes sense. And then it's really interesting also that famines tend to be the thing that drives people to Egypt. It's really fascinating, and it shows how Egypt really was the powerhouse nation of the entire world at that point. So that's just really interesting, something I thought about. Anyway, so the famine happens, and they go, okay, we'll head down to Egypt. They probably got stores, and they probably got some pastures we can use. It'll be good. They get down there, and the Abram tells Sarai to lie and say, oh, I'm his sister, so that way they won't kill him, because that back in those days in Egypt, if I'm understanding correctly anyway, back in those days, adultery was a huge, major no-no. So when Pharaoh would find a woman very pleasing who was married, he would actually have the husband killed, so that way he could marry the woman and still fall comfortably within Egyptian law. I could be wrong about that. I've been wrong about a ton of things before. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last. But it seems pretty reasonable. That's actually how it happened. I've seen movies with that depicted, and I've seen, and I've studied multiple scholars who also would attest to that same idea. So that's just really interesting. And I mean, obviously the biblical narrative here backs up that notion very, very nicely. And I have to also find it interesting that Pharaoh and his house are the ones afflicted with plagues, which is a major foreshadowing to Exodus. But one thing that one thing that I didn't really notice until now is that the ultimate punishment isn't Pharaoh and his household getting the plague. That's basically like a warning call for them. The actual punishment is for Abram, because him and his people immediately get banished out of Egypt, cast out, and there's still the famine going on. It doesn't say the famine is past. They are there because of the famine. If the famine had already passed, they would have left Egypt on their own. But no, the famine is still going, and because of Abram's lie and Sarai going along with it, they got Pharaoh and his house cursed, which ultimately led to them getting Das Boot from Egypt in the middle of a famine. So that is the ultimate punishment. Pharaoh and his house getting hit with the plagues was more just a sign that something was wrong. And yeah, I don't blame Pharaoh. I think he was actually rather merciful, given the time, and the culture, and how easy it is to offend pharaohs in that time, from what I can tell. Pharaoh could have very easily just killed them all. Took their animals, took their stuff, killed every single one of Abram's people. Pharaoh could have very easily done that, but he didn't. Instead, he says, take your stuff, take your people, take your flocks, and get out. That is so merciful of him. People tend to overlook that too, from what I've seen. Anyways, that's all that I really have to talk about this time. This is where the narrative gets back to more like a proper storytelling narrative instead of a big picture bouncing through history thing. Abram he's one of my favorite biblical characters. He's quite inspirational in a lot of ways. Like I said, his faith and obedience and all that it truly is an inspiration. But the fact that he stayed true to the promises of God, even though he even though many of them he didn't see any actual proof or even potential of it happening. Like, for example, Sarai getting pregnant, she was, I believe, 100 years old when she conceived Isaac. I mean, they thought so concretely that she was never going to have a child. That's why Hagar ended up having Ishmael, is because Sarai and Abram, or Sarai anyway, was so dead set that she would never have a child, that she gave Hagar to Abram to have a child, thinking that was going to be the child to spawn into the great nations that God had told about. Obviously, Ishmael has spawned many great nations, just the same way as Isaac has. But Abram, if I remember correctly, and we'll get to it here in a few chapters, but Abram never doubted that it was going to happen. And then when God shows up himself and says, when I come back on this day next year, you will have a son by Sarah. Because at that point, her name was Sarah. At least I think. Like I said, we'll get there. But Abram never doubted. And when God tells him this, he's still just so humbly grateful and worshiping, like praising God for it. He's basically saying, how blessed am I that you would allow me to have a child? Like it's so beautiful. I can't wait to get there. It'll be great. But Abraham, whichever you want to call him, Abraham is my preferred. Anyways, he really is, and he's awesome. He really is, and I am so excited to be getting to his section of the story. I cannot wait to get to the next one, and I hope you're just as excited as I am. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It would really help me to spread God's word, because this right here it's everything. We need this. We need this to guide us. We need this to show us how to avoid a lot of the bad stuff in life. We need this to show us what to do when the bad stuff happens. Please help me spread the word. I hate asking for it, but I need help. I need my fellow Christians to help me spread the word. Anyways, adios.